Aston Villa have just spent £30 million on a striker many Premier League fans probably haven't heard of. So let's break down who Evann Guessand is, how he plays, and why Aston Villa think he's worth the gamble. So who is Evann Guessand? Well, he's a 24-year-old striker from the Ivory Coast who plays for Nice, and he's had a few loans to Nantes and to Lausanne in Switzerland. He's got 21 goals in 109 Nice appearances, and he's a mobile, hard-working forward who thrives in space, links play and presses like a machine. As I said, he started his career at Nice, he's had loans and he's returned to Ligue 1. He's played 44 games for Nantes, scored 5 goals, but his breakthrough came last season with 13 goals and 10 assists in 42 games for his original club, Nice. But his data is really interesting. So if we look at his Ligue 1 numbers last season, 12 goals, 9 assists, pretty solid. But if you look at his XG, 9.2 XG and 0.35 per 90. So he's outperformed his XG by about 3 goals, which is very impressive. And his expected assists, 5.3 or 0.19 per 90. So again, he's outperformed his expected assists by 4, which again, very impressive. And his shots per 90, 2.21. So he's a versatile forward, as I said. Can play on the left, can play up front. So his shot stats are not as high as you'd expect for a striker because he's played on the left as well. But over 2 per 90 is still pretty good. And when you're outperforming your XG, that's a pretty good sign, but also something you need to be wary of. Is it sustainable? That is the question. Can a player keep outperforming the XG, having less shots, less expected assists? That is the question. That is something Aston Villa will have to keep an eye on. But then his main trait, his main attribute is his pressing, and this is going to be compared to forwards in the top 5 leagues and European competitions. So interceptions, 0.59 per 90 puts him in the 98th percentile. Tackles 1.18 per 90, 99th percentile. Tackles in attacking third is 0.62 per 90, 99th percentile again, and ball recoveries 3.88 per 90, 98th percentile once again. This man presses like a machine, as I said, and he's perfect for Aston Villa. He's perfect for the Premier League. He's pretty tall, he's athletic, he's fast, he's strong, and he suits Unai Emery's high press, high intensity system, with teams now liking to play with the ball out from the back, on the floor, high lines, taking risks. He can exploit that, and he could be very dangerous. And it's no surprise the likes of Brighton, Wolves and Crystal Palace were all chasing his signature. And his progressiveness is also something to watch out for. Carries, 2.98 per 90, 96th percentile. Carries into the final third, 1.56 per 90, 92nd percentile. And carries into the penalty area, 1.05 per 90, 82nd percentile. As I said, with the Premier League, most of the Premier League teams playing with a high line, liking play out with the ball. He can get in behind, he can drive with the ball in behind and create those chances against the better teams. And then when you're looking at like the Burnleys or the Sunderlands, who are likely to play a low block, he can get on that ball deeper and bring it forwards. Maybe those stats are a little bit skewed because he was playing on the left as a left winger. He's going to be carrying the ball a bit more, but still he shows he has that ability to get the ball and drive with it and commit players, and that's something Aston Villa can use to break into the even higher up the league, top 4, top 3, maybe even challenge for the league. Who knows? Anything could happen. It's quite a competitive season this year. I'd say a lot of teams are around the same level in that sort of 5th to 10th, maybe even a bit lower, 5th to 12th area. But players like Guessand that have slightly different or slightly better pressing and carrying attributes and that profile, physical, something that Brighton has really looked at this transfer window. Herzer has asked for physical athletes, so that's something Guessand is that Villa can use to exploit both sets of better and lower teams. But his strengths, his work rate, as I said, he can link up the play very well, his off the ball runs, and of course his pressing. His weaknesses, his finishing consistency is not quite there yet, and his decision making in the final third is also not quite there yet. But under Unai Emery and in the Premier League, it is something that should improve pretty quickly, and something that will need to improve pretty quickly. But why did Aston Villa want him so badly and want him enough to pay £30 million? Well, if you look at Unai Emery's tactical needs, as I said, he likes to play a flexible front three, and he needs depth behind Watkins with John Duran now in Saudi Arabia. And Guessand is that adaptable player, has played century, has played wide, can play as the 10 as well. He gives Emery that opportunity, that option to mix his squad around, and he fits Aston Villa's counter-attacking style of play, the pace and pressing, as I said, something that Aston Villa needed. Ollie Watkins is very good at that, but Guessand is a level above on that. That's his main thing. Watkins is more of a finisher compared to Guessand, and it allows squad rotation for Premier League, Cup games and Europe. So it's a pretty smart signing. Is he a fair price, or is he an overpay? Well, if you compare the fee to other striker moves this window, João Pedro to Chelsea for £60 million, kind of a similar profile to Guessand. Obviously, he is Premier League proven. Sesko to Man United for about £90 million, £85 million, not Premier League proven, playing in the Bundesliga, slightly better league than Ligue 1, but the difference between them isn't that much. And if you look, the price difference is massive. Gyökeres to Arsenal for about, again, £90 million, playing in a worse league than Ligue 1, in my opinion, with the Portuguese league. Still, Gyökeres has scored many goals. Slightly different profiles. Gyökeres is more of a stronger hold-up striker, isn't that mobile compared to Guessand, but still the price difference is massive. And then Alexander Isak, again, it's kind of a similar profile to Guessand. Obviously Premier League proven, has a lot of Premier League goals, but he's quoted at £150 million, unsellable basically. So I don't think it's an overpay at all. I think it's quite a smart, quite a cheap signing, and he's got that. He's young, he's 24, got age on his side, and he has that sell-on potential, a bit like John Durand. And obviously Premier League tax, as I said, on João Pedro, players like that. Matthias Cunha is going to go up. Guessand's price is always going to go up when a Premier League club or a few Premier League clubs come sniffing. And the scarcity of proven mobile strikers is also something that makes him seem a fair price. Not many strikers nowadays are as good on their pressing, as good on their carries as Guessand is, and come at a price like that. If he has a solid season, Aston Villa could easily double their money. What to expect at Aston Villa from Guessand this season, in his first season? Likely role in the first season, probably going to start as an impact sub, as a rotation player, but it won't be long until he becomes a starter. Where that is, on the left, up front in the 10, I'm not entirely sure yet, but he's a player that needs to be starting in the Premier League. What he needs to improve to succeed in the Premier League, obviously I said his finishing consistency and his decision making. The main thing is that finishing if he is to play up front. He's only in the 47th percentile for goals, 36th percentile for total shots, and 56th percentile for shots on target. So it's not the worst, not the best, kind of average. But if you want to succeed in the Premier League and be a superstar, and your club wants to get into the Champions League, win trophies, he needs to get that finishing stats slightly higher. We're not talking 99th percentile, because that is ridiculous, and he'd be at a club, a much bigger club, or a much better club, such as like a Manchester City or a Liverpool, if that was the case. But if he can get all of those stats to around the 60th, 70th percentile, then there's no doubt Aston Villa will have a fantastic season. Best case scenario, I don't think 15, 20 goals is unreasonable to say. Maybe 10 assists. Worst case, you're probably asking for, if you can get 10 goals, pretty respectable. Anything under 10 is probably worst case scenario when you're paying that sort of money for a striker. But to summarise, Guessand is a high upside, high risk signing. But if Villa's recruitment team have read this right, they have found the perfect successor, understudy, probably successor to Ollie Watkins. And I'm pretty confident that he's going to have a fantastic season and he might be worth picking up in FPL. But that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoy this type of content, looking at stats. Aston Villa fans, let me know down below your thoughts on your new signing. Other fans, let me know, comments, how do you think he'll do this season? Is he worth the money? I think so. But I shall see you soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, you know the outro by now. Do it with me. Adios.